is where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away. I'll be okay. Live again.
One day I will get that intro right. G'day everyone. G'day Brandon, Tim, Grant. How are we all going? Bit of a country and western theme there for our one of our guests tonight, Mick Johnson, the Mad Bull Rider. So we know he loves his country music. So we'll Aaron, Nicholas, g'day boys. Don't forget in the comments, put your postcode or where you're from to win a prize from tonight's show. We've got another competition running. Watch Harry's comments. My son, Harry Goldie, will be putting comments up tonight. So there'll be something in there to win the life jacket from there. Braden has got a couple of rods to give away. Mick's got his prize packets. So, yeah, we're looking forward to a big show tonight. We're going to talk all things bass fishing in Queensland and lithium batteries. Mick's the expert on those. So if you've got any questions about them, g'day, Jordan. G'day, Mark. How you going? So, how much do I need to cover? The kids comp next week. We've got the kids comp. We'll finish. We've got heaps of entries for that. The Bassman Spinnerbait, the Dave's Lures. We've got all them to go through. So don't forget, if you just all you got to do is put a photo up with your kids, having fun fishing. It doesn't matter what they've got, and they can go and win that one-off prize. On the next in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be giving away a $500 charter with Graham Ford on Australian Inland Fishing Charters. So that'll be in 2 weeks' time when we're talking about New South Wales bass. And as I said, follow Harry's comments to win the inflatable PFD, the Mercury Marine one tonight. There's a bit of a game happening behind the scenes with that one. G'day Matthew, g'day Tom, g'day Johnny, Scotty, they're all on there. Look, I'll bring the boys in and let's see how good Mick's internet is at Chinchilla.
G'day, Corey.
G'day, boys. How are we?
Good, mate.
Hey, boys. Howdy.
We've got a few on watching. We've got people from all over the place. You know, what do you reckon of that theme music there, Mick? Bit of country and western for you?
Oh, as usual, my internet didn't play very smoothly at all. I got bits and pieces. I'll have to watch it later.
You'll have to watch it later. So yeah, there's a little bit of a country and western theme with that one. So yeah, look, we've got plenty to cover tonight. You guys, obviously, for those guys that don't know you, Braden is, as I said the other night in the intro, is one of those people that sets trends, not actually follows them. So, you know, if you're ever around, ask Braden a few questions because he's obviously on with the trends that are coming up, not the trends that have happened. And Mick himself, he is just a gun on those southeast Queensland impoundments anyway. He won't tell you, but you know, I will. So look, let's go. We've got who have we got? I've got we've got a few questions. Lots and lots of places. So feed your questions in, guys. I'll start with a question for Braden. How you handling being locked inside, mate?
Well, I think this is probably the 7th week or the 8th week now, I think it is.
Yep.
Just moved down to New South Wales to Sydney from the Sunshine Coast. So, yeah, been 8 weeks indoor. It's not too bad. It's kind of a normal now. The first couple of weeks were, yeah, a bit fun, but it wasn't. Yeah, it's getting better. So we're keeping busy and whatnot. So slowly getting used to it.
So you moved down just before the lockdown happened, didn't you? So you gave away, you've been a Sparky for a few years, and you gave it away to follow your dream to be in the fishing industry and took a job with Daiwa. But you somehow you got the short end of the stick and you've ended up there living with Tommy Slater.
Yeah. So I was a Sparky for 10 years. Had enough of that. And then an opening come up at Daiwa, which I couldn't say no to. So I've come down here, and the first day was at the office, and then ever since has been working from home with the boys. I got Brett Haberner and Tom Slade here, so I'm at Tom's house now.
Yep.
I've been here for the 8 weeks now. So moved down just before the lockdown, which I kind of just snuck in, and just been here ever since pretty much. So ducking out to the shops here and there, but not too much else. So.
And unfortunately, your partner has been stuck in Queensland. Is that correct? So you've been down there batching it.
Yeah. So she's still holding the fort down on the coast there. She'll hopefully be down here in the next month and a half-ish. See how we go. She was supposed to start a job down here, but things have been delayed, obviously, and whatnot. So just got to play it by ear and see how things go.
No, excellent. And Mick.
Yes.
Yes, I've got to make sure that I give you a little bit of time to answer, not just
I'm here. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, not just because the internet's a bit slow, but because probably we have to say that most people in Chinchilla are up. Yeah. And just remember, Mick, we've already had a comment from Langus there in the comments that when you're not talking, mate, just remember the camera is on you. So he said to give you a smile. So we've got Grant's already on there asking some questions. Listen, guys, don't forget to get your questions up. Make sure you've got your questions up on everything that you want to ask these boys, because they've given up their time. I'm just going to go through, see if there's any questions up yet. Lots of people initiating where they're from. G'day, Mark. G'day, Dave. Oh, there's 3 or 4 Marks on. Luke, Peter. There's heaps of people on there. I'm
Sounds
just
like the Bible.
Yeah. Here we go.
Peter.
We've got
Where's Paul?
Where's Paul? We've got a Nick. Nick's got a question here. So, Mick, best lithium battery to replace 12-volt, 100-amp-hour AGM. Get into that.
The best lithium was the question?
Yeah, best lithium battery to replace.
Yep. G'day, Nick. Good question, mate. I suppose the simple question to most people, what they're going to ask tonight is about lithium. I'm not going to get too in depth of brands and specific types of battery or specific names of batteries, but just make sure when you go out and look for a battery, it's like anything. Make sure it's a good quality one. Make sure. Our biggest thing, I suppose, here is when people ask questions about batteries, make sure your first question isn't price. It's got to be. You've got to look at the quality. You've got to look at what you're getting out of the battery. Do your homework on them. There's 1,000,001 questions and 1,000,001 benefits that you're going to get out of lithium, and it's too long a list to sit here in one night and go through on this. But if you do your homework on them, but I suppose a short answer for what you're asking, Nick, is you can roughly halve what you used to be using. So if you're using a 100-amp or 110-amp-hour lead-acid battery, you could go back to a 50, 55 amp-hour lithium. I can explain, I suppose, a bit later on if anyone's got any other questions on how that sort of comes about. But the short answer, you can roughly halve your amp hours of what you're using now to what you're going to put in there for lithium.
Yeah, and that would equate, no expert, but that would equate to a massive weight reduction as well. Does the sort of weight work as half of the, if you going back in the AGM, half of the AGM weight to lithium?
No, if you're talking deep cycle lithium, I mean, like 110 amp hour lead acid battery, you could be talking 35 up to 40, 42 kilos in some of them bigger batteries. An equivalent, like a 50 amp hour 12 volt battery, you're looking around about 4 or 5 kilos.
Yeah, so it's a massive weight coming out the back of your boat.
Big difference. Yeah.
I think I watched a video on your Facebook page once where you were talking about the amount of weight that you were taking out of the boat with, 2 batteries for your electric and your cranking battery. Was the equivalent of an extra person in the boat, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah. And when you start, like we said in the pre show that we did, you can really use lithium from anywhere from your vehicle sort of crank to accessory in your vehicle right through your boat. So I think with my setup from the front of my Hilux to the back of the boat, taken out, because when you used to have the boat, Corey, I know that you had it as set up as a 36 volt.
Yeah.
There was a house battery and a crank battery. So it had 5 batteries in it. My vehicle had 2 batteries in it for accessory batteries to run everything. And then a crank battery. There was about 270, I think it was. It was nearly 300 kilos of battery that I took out of the whole setup and replaced it with about 70.
Yeah, and that's massive. Fuel bills, fuel gains, everything else, and boat balance. Steve Galvin's is basically asked part of which will lead into what you've just been talking about. Are you running lithium as your crank batteries? And I think you've just answered that.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So, yeah, most of the crank batteries on the market now, you sort of need that for most, especially the 2-strokes with the Pro Accessors and stuff like that. You still, if you're talking smaller engines, it doesn't really matter. You only need sort of, 500-600 CCA, but any of them bigger motors, most of these lithium batteries now are putting out anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 CCA, and somewhere equivalent to about 180 to 200 amp hours as a deep cycle. Same battery, but for run time, for sounders and stuff like that. So, way more capacity than a lead acid. Yeah,
and there's a fair bit of myth and banter going on behind the scenes and whatnot. But I think you touched on it before, where you said, just don't go shopping on price. But the same thing is, years ago we couldn't put lithiums in the boat because they had the exploding sort of thing. But they've negated all that now with better systems, haven't they?
Yeah, correct. And everyone sort of puts lithiums together in one bundle, but I mean there's at least half a dozen that I know of different makeups of lithium. There's like lithium nickel and lithium cobalt, and the lithium ion phosphate that most of these batteries, or the batteries that we use, don't take my word for it, but I think it's the safest type of lithium that you can have, and that's sort of where they've gone with these batteries to put them into boats.
Yeah, and they've got special, I don't know, as I said, don't know the technical terms, but they've got special overload systems now and that where they didn't have them before, haven't they? Yeah.
That's right, yeah. They've got battery management systems in them. I mean, anyone who's been sort of interested in batteries and getting on to me about them, the first thing I do is just send them a picture of a $700 battery and a battery that I recommend, and you will look at them and it'll make up your mind for you. I mean, you can go on eBay, you can go on internet and buy yourself a lithium battery. I mean, you can buy the components online and make your own battery. It's not hard. Yeah. But when you see the way that these guys put them together and the rigmarole that they go through of getting them IEC certified, all the tests that they do with these to make sure that you are safe, especially in a boat, then yeah, it's not really a money thing. It's what you're getting out of it and the longevity of the battery.
Yeah. Like the questions are all sort of interlinking with themselves. And Mark Cook's also written their sort of price tag. And tell us about the weight benefits. I know Terry Allwood's on there. You've just decked his little tinny out with lithiums. I've seen that on Facebook the other day. But what are the major benefits of taking that much weight out of a boat?
Oh, well, obviously, like we we're just saying, it's on the water, but it's also off the water. I mean, taking all that weight that I used to have in that boat when I got it off you, it had that many bloody batteries in it. The spring sat down like literally 2 inches more than what they do now just from taking all that weight off it.
Yeah.
So you're carrying, I think it's about 300 kilos that 200 kilos that I've taken out of that boat in total, and the vehicle. Sorry, so you can imagine that, that's 2 big guys or 3 sort of normal sized guys that are in your vehicle that you're towing around with you the whole time whenever you're going somewhere, and you get on the water, and you can imagine the weight difference that you're getting there. I mean, it brings them up out of the water. You'll get more speed out of them. You'll somewhat handle better, I suppose. There's some boats that don't, they like that bit more weight to keep them in the water or whatever, but most guys are pretty happy with the speed they can get out of them now, because they're sitting an inch and a half higher out of the water. And in some cases where people have actually had to drop their motor because it's popped it up that little bit more, and now they're starting to cavitate, so they need to stick their motor down a bit deeper. And I mean, when you look at it long term, I mean, the benefits of that alone are, probably half the expense of the battery if you start looking at it price wise, where people don't want to pay for lithium, and they don't want to get rid of their money because they're too worried about paying a lot of money in regards, in compared to paying for carrying all that weight around. So it definitely does pay for itself when you consider all the factors into it.
Yeah, excellent. We've got some fishing questions here. So one for both of you. Patrick Bailey has asked, what's your favourite lure to catch bass at Boondooma? You go first, Braden, if you need to take a drink.
Boondooma. Probably. I haven't fished Boondooma for a long while now, but I would have to say, what was I fishing there last? I was fishing a blade there last. One of the most memorable sessions I've had there's probably been on a jig up the steward arm, up the left arm. I think, is it called One Tree Bend or something before? There's a little ridge line off there. I was just throwing a little Pros Factory motion jig off it, and that was probably the most memorable one I've had in there. So I'd probably go jig, because you can always seem to find a fish on a jig somewhere in Boondooma. So
yeah, and that's something that's underused in Boondooma itself.
100%. Yeah, there's enough rock and good cover there to use it. So yeah, definitely a jig.
And Scott has asked, would impoundment bass eat red claw? Well, the answer to that question, Scott, is yes, definitely they will. I've caught bass with still red claw hanging out their mouth. So yes, they will, Scott. So, and that's why jigs do work well. I think my answer to that question, Patrick, is depending on the season. So obviously during summer, I would be throwing spoons and plastics at the wall, and then during spring I'd be up in one of the arms throwing a reaction bait, whether it be spinner baits or jackals. So Mick, what's your go-to at Boondooma?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at one of the comments there. One from Coney.
I haven't got to that one yet.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. It really depends on the season. I mean, I'm a little bit in the boat with Braden there, but a jig has really not come a long way, but they've probably would have eaten them in there for a long time before, us guys come along and started throwing them. But yeah, it's certainly a good dam to throw a jig, winter, summer, spring, whenever you want to pick one up and throw one. You can usually find a good fish and get him to bite it.
Yeah. So any other lures you can think of, Braden, or anything to give Patrick a hand? Or I'm just reading some questions. I'll get you to keep talking a little bit for us.
Yeah. Well, Boondooma for me, I've always been able to find them on the edge, regardless of time of year and weather and whatnot. Another good lure there for me was the jackal, the genie mask. Just hopping that down the rock walls and whatnot, and just slow rolling that off the weed. If you can find a good patch of weed and whatnot, it's always seemed to get me fishing. Same with just a TN16, stuff like that. I've always kind of probably fished edges there more than deep. That's just because of the style I kind of fish. But if I was going there, I'd definitely stick to edges and throw that reaction, or that either reaction or a really slow bait. So yeah.
Yep. And going into Luke's question there, Mick, do you prefer edges or deep water for bass?
Good question, Luke. It's a bit the same, mate. I find it's in the mornings. Usually, always start on an edge, on no matter what dam I'm in, and then slowly work your way out deeper. Boondoom is one of them dams that summertime you can usually get them out deep. A lot of people don't really realise, I suppose, with Boondooma, but it's very wind dependent. Boondooma, I've found it. You've got to have the wind from the right direction to get them to bite deep. As a rule, anything with a north in it, I forget about deep. I just go straight back to the edge and start fishing edges. If you start to get a wind blowing from the north, you probably got about 10 minutes up your sleeve, and for whatever reason, they don't like it. So, yeah, I like both, but you've really got to have the right conditions. And probably in a tournament, especially towards the end of a tournament, I tend to forget about deep as quick as I can, because most of them fish will shut down first.
Yeah. Do you find are you one of those fishermen that's able to read those as you're on the water? Because most of the time I'm out on the water when I'm fishing, and I don't even know which way north is.
It's just straight over the wall. There you go, Boondooma.
No, excellent. And
anything coming over the wall, go back to the edge.
Do you find that on different dams have different, the wind blows? BP, I had a lot of old timers used to tell me, wind from the west, fish by best at BP, blah, blah, blah. Do you follow the wind a lot?
Me, sorry, Corey?
Do you follow the wind a lot? Like, is it just at Boondooma, or is it other dams?
I didn't know if you're talking to me or Braden. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think, especially, and don't ask me why it's Boondooma. I mean, usually it's a southerly. Usually you get that cold front, as everyone would know. You get that cold front coming through with a southerly. I mean, it usually shuts fish down. So you're obviously keeping an eye on that. But, yeah. I do. I keep a close eye on what the wind's meant to be doing, because that can dictate your day a lot. If it's going to change for you through the day, then you might want to fish edges, or you might want to start deep before that northerly starts to blow up in that instance. So you got to keep an eye on what the wind's doing.
Yeah, excellent. So I want to talk about prizes for tonight. I do have this Mercury life jacket to give away, and I have put it up on the screen there. My son Harry is commenting in the comments. So what you need to do over the next hour is follow his comments. He's actually writing a sentence out. It's jumbled up. So when he gets to the last word, I'll say go, and you'll have to, the first person to type in the full 10-word sentence into the description will actually win the lithium life jacket. So follow Harry in the comments there. And we'll go from there. So next question, we'll feed through them. Braden, one for you, but Mick can cover this as well. Run us through crankbaits. What, where, when, and why? From Matty Langford. I think he wants to start on you here.
Yeah, he wants to get some little tricks by the sounds of it. I've probably been really using crankbaits for the last year solidly, whether that be in 2 foot or 20 foot. Depending on what dam and whatnot. I like to fish, if I fish deep with crankbaits, I like to fish ledges or drop-offs, something from flats into riverbeds or something like that. The general golden kind of area is that 20 foot, because that's generally what you can get those crankbaits like the IKs and the deep sixes and stuff down to. Sometimes you can get them a little bit deeper on longer casts with the wind and whatnot. But they seem to, when you do fish deep, if you can't get them on spoons or plastics or anything like that, and they are on the bottom, generally they will eat a crankbait. I've found you could fish a school for an hour with other baits and not get a bite, and then as soon as you put a crankbait down and hit the bottom, you just catch a fish straight away. So that would be how I'd fish a deep one. In the shallow, I've really been doing shallow edge work with crankbaits a lot. Recently, I've caught them in 2 foot at the middle of the day, with the sun beaming. It's kind of, yeah, it's a hard one. You've just got to hit the bottom all the time. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, what bait you use in the way of make and model. Just as long as you get down to the bottom and just stir some things up, you'll generally get bit, it seems. So rocky edges are really good to throw them on. And it's all about deflection, really, with crankbaits. So.
Yep. Mick, have you had much to do with crankbaits?
Haven't really delved into them, to tell you the truth. I've thrown them from time to time, but I'm still experimenting, still learning. And
you two guys used to fish together in the teams and whatnot, so you've probably missed out on a little bit of development from following him, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. We got a question here. Go on.
No, you're right. No, it's right. I just talking crap.
No, that's all right. We got a question here from Johnny. Where's gone? Are you able to link a lithium battery and an AGM battery and a dual battery setup, or are the charging rates too different?
Hey, Johnny. No, you can't link them together, and it's not really anything to do with charging. They will charge very similar. It's more to do with the discharge of it. So if you'd imagine a lead acid is going to be discharging starting at that 12.5, 12.8, and as it dissipates, it's going to be going down in voltage, whereas lithium doesn't. It's going to be sitting at 13.2 to 13.6, say, and it's going to stay there for most of its life, most of its discharge life, whereas the AGM is going to be falling away as it gets used. So they're just going to get way out of whack. And yeah, no, you can't link them together.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's a good question, Johnny. And don't forget that after the show or tomorrow, whenever, it doesn't matter, you've got a Facebook page, Mick Johnson Fishing. That's your Facebook page, isn't it, Mick?
Mick Johnson Fishing, yeah, sorry, yep.
Correct. Yeah. So if anyone has or wants to go into more specific with Mick, and you can post out Australia wide with the battery. So get a hold of you through your Facebook page. Yeah.
Yep. Check us out either on the Mick Johnson Fishing or the. Don't put that question on. No. Mick Johnson. No, you're right. Mick Johnson Fishing, M&J Auto Electrical page, or you can check out. Probably them two is the easiest. Mick Johnson Fishing or M&J Auto Electrical.
Yep. Right, yeah, Bo has got a fairly long question here, but we'll cover it as much as we can. When you fish school, can you read that, Mick?
Boys, when fishing, I can read. Boys, when fishing bass, when you find school fish, what do you find works best for getting these fish to bite?
You're right, or do you want me to read it to you? Because I'm just clicking on some other stuff.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Someone just read it to me in the background here. Bo. Good question, I suppose, mate. We might do a prize for Bo, yeah?
Yeah, excellent.
Is that all right? Yeah.
That's all right. So, Bo, at the end of the show, can you send me through your details and I will forward them on to Mick? Which prize are you going to give away there, Mick?
We might go. We might go a couple of spoons, eh?
Couple of spoons.
So we got a slow black. Got a 20-gram slim slow black there, and one of the newish live target.
Excellent. That's awesome. Hey, listen,
and
Mick, go on.
Yeah.
No, you go. You finished?
No, that's all right. With all these prizes, just going to throw in a Fishing Bits, a couple of stickers and whatnot to go in with them prizes. So we'll send that out. And
Fishing Bits is one of the big retailers up in that sort of area around Toowoomba. So he supports all the tournament boys. Listen, I've been
for sure.
It's been really hard this week, Mick. This guy has rang me, and he wanted to come on the show to talk to you. And I said, look, we'll see how you go on Friday night. Now, what has actually happened is he hasn't got very good phone range, so he can't go on the live stream. But he's actually phoned me in, so I'm just gonna bring him in here. I've got a photo off his Facebook page to show who he is.
Yeah, Mick, you there, mate? Mick.
Yeah, mate, I can hear you.
Bloody Mick bloody Johnson, how are you, mate? It's bloody Bob here. How you going?
Oh, bloody Bob. Yeah, fair dinkum. Haven't heard from Bob for ages.
Yeah, mate, I'm bloody just doing a bit of a road trip. I got a night off tonight. Give myself the night off tonight. I'm doing a bloody big old run. You know me, mate. Just bloody doing a run from Darwin down to Perth and then bloody back up to Darwin and then over to bloody Townsville and back through to Perth again. Hopefully I'll get that all done by them.
Yeah, right.
Get it all done by tomorrow. But I've been trying to ring you all week. And I just wanted to tell you, haven't spoken to you for a while, but I don't know if I feel like a bit of a celebrity, actually. I'm bloody, amongst some pretty cool people here right now, but I'm just a humble old bloody truck driver, but I just wanted to say, and I won't say it like I normally do, but mate, you do a bloody good job. Bloody good job, Mick. Bloody good job.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob. You do a good job yourself, mate. You always ring. You always letting me know how good a job I do, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just for the people at home, like I got me semi done by Mick a few years ago and put 26 batteries in and did it in an hour by himself. And I just thought, this bloke knows what he's doing. So I just want to say, mate, bloody good job. Look, I know you got people to talk to and stuff, and I know you got young Braden there. He's a good-looking chap, that young Braden, I'll tell you. But
hey, Bob.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, no. Look, we're going to have to cut you off there, mate. I know Mick's. We've got some people. They've got some real questions to go. Thanks very much for ringing in tonight, mate.
No worries, mate. And just one more time, Mick. Bloody good job, mate. Bloody good job.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
See you, boys.
Bye.
So I don't know who Bob was. He's been ringing me all week to try and get on the show there, Mick. So
you're a bloody good bloke, Mick.
You're a bloody good bloke. So we'll get back in.
Good bloke.
We'll get back into the. Don't forget to follow the question. Follow the words that Harry's putting up, because there is some stuff there. G'day, Dave. G'day, Mark. So people are still asking about that possum thing. We might have to carry on to that later. So we'll see how that goes. Simon Jackson's got a lithium question there, so I'll bring that up. Do the battery charges differ from lead acid to lithium, Mick?
Yeah, Simon, another good question, mate. They do slightly, but lead acid and lithium have got a very similar charge algorithm, so it's only very. I think there's like a 0.2 or 3 of a volt that lithium charge higher. So they, if you have already got a charger in your boat or in your van or whatever, then as long as it's got AGM capability, then we don't worry about changing them at all. They'll just drop straight in. And in most cases, some AGM, some of the smaller, cheaper AGM chargers don't. They won't be compatible, but yeah, 90% of them do.
Yeah. Hey, who's got the buzzing going on in the background? Who's making shakes? Is that your house, Mick?
Sorry.
Is that one of the kids making a milkshake, or are they actually making a pina colada or something?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Bloody making a smoothie.
That's funny.
Like I can't yell out. I can't yell at them.
G'day, Adrian. Yeah, you can't yell at them for having a milkshake. That's awesome. So, listen, what I will do is, which one of these two is making the milkshake there?
Yeah. The one on the right.
The one on the right. There you go. So, Mick is a big advocate for kids in fishing, and his girls and the older one occasionally, when he can get him away from the PlayStation, go and fish lots of comps with you, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. It takes a bit of dragging away from that, but
no, does all right too. So here's one from Peter Wright. We've got best dam in southeast Queensland to fish. Obviously, fish. I think not boat. You go first, Braden.
Yeah, I'd probably be a bit biased because that was my kind of home lake, but probably Barumba, I'd say. You can pretty much do anything you want there in the way of baits and whatnot. So, yeah, I'd have to go Barumba for sure.
And it's one of those dams that has that magical little bycatch that you get every now and again with beautiful Saratoga. Yeah.
No, it's a good one. The yellow belly been getting on there more in the last couple of months, I've noticed as well, which has been good. So, yeah, I'd definitely have to go Barumba. Yeah.
And Mick, what's your favourite dam in southeast Queensland?
It'd have to be Cania. Cania's, like we're talking about wind and that the other day. I was just talking to Matt Langford about the other day, actually, with this cold front that just come through, and we were saying that, you know, Cania would be one of them dams, being so far north probably and just a little bit warmer, but one of them dams that doesn't really get affected by too much. You can usually go there and get onto them and catch fish, you know. Dams down here, Boondooma would probably have to be one of the worst for just shutting down, because when it shuts down, just shuts down hard, and you can fish your what off and get nothing.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Cania, because that brings me up to the Cania curse, and both of you guys have been stung by the Cania curse, haven't you?
Here we go. Yes.
Yeah. So Braden, I'll ask you first. So. There was I think it was a Bass-tastic. Now, Bass-tastic is a bit of a laid-back competition that they have up in Queensland, and Russell still uses buckets to transfer your fish from your live well up to the weigh-in stage. And I believe you were in the lead, and you had your bag in the boat. What happened on the back of the boat, right?
It was the grand final, unfortunately. I wasn't using cull clips until my good friend Corey told me to use cull clips after it. And I had the bucket on the back of the boat on the rod locker. I took the first fish out of the well, threw it in the bucket. Then I got the second fish. I threw it as well into the bucket, and it must have scared the first fish. And that first fish just got straight out, and off she went. And of course, as it does, it just sits there in the water just for a second. And and then just slowly swims off. So that was at which wasn't enjoyable. It was like somebody kicked me dog, but that's how it is. So.
Yeah, so the Cania curse struck you fairly hard. That was in a grand final. Actually cost you first place. May have even cost you a check. I can't remember. Did you get a check on that one?
No, I didn't. I think I got 10th or something with 5.
Yeah. Yeah, so that cost you probably the grand final win that day. And then, Mick, you followed suit in the first of the ABT Oz Opens at Cania.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, so you missed on getting big bass and largest sack of the weekend. You had a bit of an incident with your key tag, I believe.
Yeah, I did. Just probably talking too much. I think that was the main thing. I rolled back in there and started yarning and just forgot all about it.
Well, I'll tell you how the story goes, because you never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So Mick actually probably would have caught one of the biggest bags you've ever seen in an ABT competition. He caught it during the Oz Open at Cania, and he was that chuffed when he got back to the boat ramp. He was doing a fair bit of bragging on the boat ramp, and actually forgot that he didn't have a co-voter because in the Oz Open you don't have a co-voter to hang your key tag up. So all we could hear was this almighty yell. I think it was Simon Goldsmith on top of the hill. Key tag 25. Where's key tag 25? And Mick's like just looked down at the ground at his ankles and just everything just dropped. It was like, oh no. So it was a 5-minute penalty or something, wasn't it, Mick?
No, I think it was weight. I think I got 20 grams or something per, not one fish, but each fish. So I had, I think, 4 fish that would have went big bass. But I got pinged on all 5 fish, and that put all of them under big bass.
So and Matty Langford ended up getting big bass for that weekend, didn't he?
He did, yes.
Yeah. So no, excellent. Thanks. That's the Kenya curse. So you've got to be careful on Kenya. So thanks for that question, Peter. Let's get into what have we got? Ricky Goward's got a question here. Braden, can you give us a rundown on, I think it's your go-to rod and reel for each of your main lures for bass? So that's pretty long-winded, but what sort of rod would you use for a plastic versus a spoon?
Yeah, so my favourite rods would have to be I think it's the TD0, the Daiwa TD0. It's a 722 bait caster. That would probably have to be my favourite bait casting setup for pretty much all lures you can throw on a bait caster, pretty much, whether it be a TN, spinnerbait, chatterbait, jig, anything at all, crankbait, anything. That's probably the best rod I've found as an all-rounder. So that's what I've generally got on my deck, a few of, because they can just do pretty much anything.
Yeah. Do you have different ratios on your reels? Like you have that same rod set up and have, say, a slower ratio reel for your spinnerbaits, or do you just wind slower?
Yeah, not really. I'm not really into that too much. I've pretty much just run 6.3s because in my mind, if I want to reel fast, I'll just reel it faster, and if I want to go slow, I'll just go slower. So I just generally just use 6.3s. I find they do pretty much everything I need them to do. So I always just have. I normally, with my bait casters, I pretty much just run the Daiwa Tachula 100s. I find there's nothing wrong with them for bass. They tend to get the job done, no worries at all, which is really good. In the way of spin, I use the zeros as well. Anything really 7 foot. With the plastic, I like to go a little bit longer, 7.6-ish, with a little bit lighter tip and whatnot. And anywhere from a 2,000 to a 2,500 size reel seems to get the job done pretty well. So
yeah. So you're not into, on your spin rods, you don't have a 1,000 size reel and a 2,500 size reel for the different lures, yeah?
Not really.
So you keep it fairly simple.
Yeah, the only thing I kind of seem to always do for some reason is anything I throw that's a plastic, whether it be a 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, or whatever, with a paddle tail. I always seem to just have it on a 2,000. I've just noticed that. For some reason, I always do that. But other than that, not really, no. So, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. All right, next question here. Favourite pound leader and mainline to use when fishing for bass? That's from Jackson.
Yep, I'm pretty much with baitcaster. I pretty much just run 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader. I don't really get busted off too much on that. If a bass does me on that, they can have it as far as I'm concerned. So sometimes in a little bit heavier cover, I might go up to 12 or 14. But in my mind, the difference between 12 and 10 is not much, so I don't really do it.
Yep.
But yeah, that's just generally me. In the way of spin, I go normally 6-pound braid. And yeah, with plastics, it'll either be from a 6-pound leader up to, if I'm throwing something like a top water or something, might be 10-pound. But I don't really seem to go over 10-pound leader for bass, so that seems to get me out of trouble pretty well. So. Yep.
And Mick, you got a different variant on that for Jackson?
Yeah, I tend to, I suppose if we're talking plastics and a bit more finesse stuff, I do. I think there's a little bit more to your line and leader more thickness, and just more the way that it presents your lure. Obviously, you got big heavy line. It's gonna mess with the action of your lure and whatnot. So I find the lighter I can go, if fish are really shut down and I want to throw, small plastics, little light stuff, I will definitely have lighter line and leader tied onto at least one rod that I can mix that up and throw it out and see if that makes a difference. Anything like TNs, stuff like that you get in reaction, spinner baits and that kind of stuff, I don't think it matters too much. But when you start trying to get in that right depth zone sort of stuff and getting a little bit more finesse, then yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a bit the same, but I mean, even throwing sort of 8 pound in the timber and whatnot, you might be risking a little bit, but if that's what you got to do to get a bite, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think they're both great tips, because for the average person, they might only have 1 or 2 rods in the boat. It's all right for the tournament guys to go out and say, oh, I've got 15 rods. I've seen Chris Hicks and with 20, 25 rods sitting on his deck at some stage, and you're like, wow. But most of these guys have only got sort of one line to choose. One, they can change the leader. They've only got one line and one reel and one rod to use. So in that scenario, for the average Joe Blow that's going to go out in his boat, what's the weight line for southeast Queensland chasing bass or golden perch? What's the weight line and leader you would suggest to them to take?
Yeah, I'd probably just, if I only had to take one rod out, one reel, one line, one leader, I'd go 10 and 10, 10 pound braid, 10 pound leader, because whether you want to fish an edge or whether you want to fish deep, it's kind of just a general, I think, all-rounder that can get everything done. If you could take another leader out with you, I'd probably take a 6, because you can always just put a longer leader if you do want to downsize that presentation a little bit and make it a bit more finessey. You can always just put a bit longer leader on, being the 6. So if you're going to use a plastic or even just fishing deep with a spoon or whatever, because there's no structure around, so you can throw that little bit lighter line, which will then just seem, just be a bit more invisible to the fish, and I think, that'd be the go. So
yeah, and for the average person, as I said, we're not all tournament fishing on the show, watching the show. A lot of the people are beginners and just getting into it. Is it what leader should somebody go to the shop and they want to buy 10-pound leader? Are they buying mono? Are they buying fluoro? What are they looking for? Are they buying as small a diameter as they can get? What are they looking for?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely go fluoro for leader, because it's got fluoro, it sinks, so it's got a little bit more density, so it sinks a bit better. It's invisible, or so they say, underwater. So I'd definitely go fluoro. You can get supple ones, you can get harder ones and whatnot, but just anything that's probably in your price range would be a good start. Something that you're comfortable paying for would be a good one. But there's a lot of good ones out there and whatnot. So line thickness is a good way to go for presentation and whatnot. But then in my eyes, you're going to compromise a little bit with the strength of it. So it's just, whatever kind of looks good there, I'd probably go with that. So.
Yeah, Mick, you got a view?
Probably the biggest thing, I think, because there's so many lines out there, leaders probably not, like Braden said, they do have supple stuff and they do have hard stuff and all the rest of it. That's sort of whatever you seem to find works for you. But line, I think, comes in a lot of different diameters, and it can make a real difference in the presentation to your lures. I think if you find a line that's good, stick with it, like even brand, because the difference between the way that it casts to the way that it cuts through the water, the way that it may float or sink, whatever kind of line that you're dealing with, it will vary so much between the two. So if you're trying to refine your fishing and trying to get a bit of an idea of where your lure's sitting, I would definitely just say stick with the one brand, and don't sort of jump around too much when it comes to braid.
Yep, excellent. Well, I think we've got only a few words left for the competition for the life jacket. So keep following what Harry's doing in the comments. Just looking for a question. Is there any questions that came to occur?
I like that. I reckon we should ask Braden, have you ever chucked a wobbly like my husband?
Okay. Yeah, well, have you ever chucked one, Braden?
Because my you know what my answer is going to be.
Yeah, I can imagine you, Mick.
It's definitely, yeah.
I think probably the closest thing to wobbly I've chucked would be, I think it was at Barumba. It was a bass-tastic. I think it was start of last year, I think it was, and I had my mate on the boat. It was a singles round, and I just couldn't seem to keep a fish on or stay out of the snags, or, you know, they were busting me off and all that, and I just couldn't get one in the boat. It was the start of the session, and I was getting snagged. It just wasn't everything that could have went my way. Just wasn't. So that would be, and I just shut up, and I was just a bit angry after that. But once I got
did you throw anything
overboard, I was pretty happy. Yeah. So
you did.
Oh no, in the Australian Open. What's that, Mick?
No, so did you throw anything overboard?
Oh god, no.
Not your mate or anything?
No. He didn't talk to me for a while, but that's for sure. He noticed I was a bit off. So.
What about you, Mick? You ever chucked a wobbly in the boat?
Yeah, plenty of times. No, not usually in a tournament, but yeah, it's been plenty of times when I was younger. I'd imagine some of the guys listening tonight could tell you a story or two.
Yeah, I look, there's a few in there, and a few people that I've been watching their names come up, and I'm a bit scared of what they're actually going to write. So I'm glad that they only go into the comments and I'm not bringing it up on the screen, I can tell you. Thanks, Calissa, for that great follow of the show. Let's go down. Mr. Stu, Patrick, Bo, Simon, Tracy. G'day, Tracy. Flynn, here we go. What's Flynn got to say? With lures, what's more efficient, natural colours or non-natural?
For me?
Both of you, yeah. You start first,
Mick. Natural in clearer water. Who asked it? Sorry, I'm just trying. Flynn. Good question, Flynn. We might do a prize for Flynn too, eh?
Right, yeah, sounds good.
How does it sound? But to answer your question, I suppose, Flynn, clearer the water, the more natural the presentation and the more finesse you seem to have to be in these southeast Queensland dams. And then the dirtier the water gets, you've sort of got to start to get a bit louder and a little bit, brighter and thumpier with everything, whether it be on a spinnerbait, blades and stuff like that to get their attention. But most of the time the water is pretty clear, so I usually don't go too out there. Just keep it a natural, like a green pumpkin or a green or chartreuse, just a chartreuse tail or whatever. But that's about it for colour. Yep.
Braden, what about yourself?
Yeah, with plastics, I tend to keep it pretty natural in the way of, I'm a sucker for AU. I really like that colour. Anything in plastics quite natural, but in the last year my eyes have probably been open to some really out there colours like your chartreuse and your blues, just really wild like fluorescent colours. I've had a lot of success on them in the way of obviously crankbaits and stuff like that because it's just loud, it's there, it's in their face. So with reaction, I'm starting to probably go towards the more crazy fluorescent colours. I'm a big fan of chartreuse now, where a few years ago you wouldn't see a lure on my boat that was chartreuse. So yeah, I think time and place for colours, and it's just probably with fishing, bass fishing in particular. I think confidence is a big thing. So if you get confident in a lure, you can pretty much throw it anywhere and probably catch a fish on it. So that's probably the biggest thing with colour is find your confidence colour, and you'll you'll probably outfish other colours. I'd
Yeah,
say. So.
yeah, no, I agree, and I say this a lot to people. We get tied up in a lot of the smaller intricate sort of changes and whatnot. But I think it all comes back to definitely confidence. When you're on a roll, you're on a roll. But why do you have a lure that you always go to in the tackle box? Because you've caught fish on it before. So you go back to that. So you're naturally always going to catch more fish on it because you keep going back to it. I think you're dead right with confidence there, Braden.
Really strong.
Yeah.
So just finding that last question. So thanks, Flynn.
I was just going to show.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to show Flynn. We got some baby bass sliders there. Talking of somewhat natural colours, and there's a bit of 6 pound. Where are we? Bit of 6 pound braid there for Flynn.
Excellent. He will love that because he's down here, and they will be dynamite on the reddies and yellows down here as well. So
while we're on the prize train there,
mate.
I might announce what I've got here.
Yes, please do.
I've got 2 TD Hyper rods here. This one is a spin. It's a 662 medium light spin, so it's 2 to 6 kilo. A really good little bass rod. So I've got that one, and also a big swim bait rod here. So this is a 7.6 extra heavy swim bait rod. So it's 15 to 24 kilo. Both TD Hypers. And to win those tonight, just write in the comments when all this stuff's over with the virus and whatnot, where would you take that rod that you'd like? Where would you take it fishing, and what would you target? So I'll just pick somebody out of the comments for them for both the rods. So
excellent. So just say that again for everyone. You've got to put in a comment where you're going to go.
Yep. So
as soon as
write in the comments here where you'll go fishing with one of the rods, with the swim bait rod or the bass rod, where you're going to go fishing and what you're going to target.
Excellent, and you'll pick that out. That's awesome. And we have a winner for the PFD. So
yes, I saw that.
PFDs come up, and Johnny was the first one in. My judges inside have given it to Johnny. So Johnny franchise, can you send us your address and everything, and I'll post that up to you up in Kingaroy. So Johnny Francis, that is it. Johnny franchise. So big sliders. So that's that winner, and let's get those comments going for that. There's a heap of people guessed almost correctly, so I'm glad that the girls were Nikki and Harry were inside. So Braden, I've got a question for you here from Terry.
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times down here with the boys. Because of all the restrictions and whatnot. The first weekend I was down here, I got to go to Lostock just before they closed all the dams and whatnot, which was good. But ever since when we have been, we got a ramp just down the road here, about 5 minutes. So we've been going and getting some flatted and whatnot, and getting stuck into the brim. I don't mind brim fishing, but I don't know how I'd go doing it. There seems to be a lot of moving parts and a whole nother tackle area in the boat that I'm gonna have to find to fill it up. So I don't know. I'll have to see how I go.
And then you got to put that beautiful legend in the salt water, mate.
Yeah, and then there's that problem.
We don't want that. There's a question from Kimmy Jane for both of you, braid and leader or straight through for crankbaits. That's a great question.
Yeah, I've tried both. I've tried the fluoro quite a lot. I like fluoro for anything pretty much under 10 foot, say, because, pardon me, with fluoro you find it has a lot of stretch. So you're just the amount of Just the amount of feeling that you get through the rod and whatnot is lowered a lot. So you won't feel a lot of what that crankbait's doing. Like when it's hitting cover or hitting the bottom or whatever. So I find I use it a lot more from 10 foot and less of water. When we get down to the deeper stuff, the 20 foot, I did throw it there a lot, but I was finding I was thinking about it too much, and I was probably overthinking it in a way, because I'd be trying to hit the bottom that hard and wondering if I'm on the bottom or whatnot, and then I think that was costing me a lot of fish and a lot of time, because when you get to that 20 to 23 foot, generally that's where on a cast you'll either hit the bottom or you won't hit the bottom. So when it's that fine of a margin, I tend to throw Braden leader. I still throw 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader. You do find, because you are hurling these baits around, and when you really get a swing around on them, they've got a lot of power and a lot of weight behind them. So you will find, if you have a bird's nest, you might break a couple off with braid and leader. But I think it's worth the cast offs for just that extra sensitivity and whatnot, because it is all about deflection and hitting the bottom and hitting things to get bites on them. The reason why I go 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader for that is just because the thinner your line is, the deeper you can get your lure. So that's why I try to go as light as possible on my lines to get the crankbaits down deeper. But that's only really in the 20-foot plus kind of stuff. When it's a little bit shallower, that 10 to 15 or even say 15 less, you can kind of go a bit heavier because you know your bait's going to get down pretty easily. So
yeah, so you're saying that basically because the braid's diameter is thinner, it will work through the water better than the
yeah. Even though the braid this is just my theory, but even though the braid is buoyant, because it's thinner and it cuts through the water a lot better. So if you can get a good cast out on things like baits that say they get down to 20 foot, you can sometimes get them down to 25 if there's a good wind on your back. You can really hurl it out there and get it out there and just work it down there and crank it. You'll find you'll get those baits exceeding what they say on the packets and whatnot. So I try to go as light as possible for that type of stuff. And then that's what you get into. You get into your break-offs, like your cast-offs and what if you go too light. So you just need to kind of find that fine line and just run it. So
yeah, that's a big caster. I know we had a question earlier on. I can't remember who it was from about trolling. And that's exactly the theory with trolling too. So I think he said he was new to dams, and basically he does a lot of trolling. And yeah, to use that braid, you'll get that 5 to 7 feet deeper out of using braid trolling than what you will out of using a thick mono or fluoro.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know Mick does a lot of fluoro fishing for with jigs and other reaction baits and whatnot. With reactions like TNs and spinnerbaits and that, it's not about hitting the bottom and making it get down to a depth where you want it, because you're either you throw it out and hit the bottom and wind it back, or you can it down or whatever. So it's there's not as much margin that you need to follow there. But yeah, Mick's done a lot of fluoro from my knowledge, so he might be able to further that on some other baits.
Go, Mick.
Yeah, so I think most of it for me is where you are in the water depth or where you are in the water column and where the fish are sitting. So to me, fluoro, I'll use fluoro for anything that, like a jig that's on the bottom, spinnerbaits, a TN, stuff like that, where I'm not too worried about the actual presentation of the lure coming through the water. So then, if it's on the surface, I suppose surface is a good scenario or a good way to see just how quick fluoro does sink. You throw a surface out with fluoro and just let it sit there, even if it's for 5 seconds, you'll see that fluoro will just sink out of sight. And if you're in snaggy stuff, it'll sink down underneath a limb most of the time, and you'll start twitching your surface again. Your surface will want to dive because your fluoro's sunk. So I think in the idea of fishing them for jigs, I know a lot of guys will fish jigs with braid leader setup, but for me, I suppose fluoro just gives you that one more option of, if you give it enough time or you just let it sit there, give it a bit of a shake, it will actually sit lower. I mean, I always picture my braid as got an arch in it. Even when you're retrieving it, it's got that big arch. You let fluoro sit there long enough, it'll actually turn upside down and it'll drag your jig along the bottom rather than trying to pop it up every time Braid will. So if you're trying to get a lure to the bottom and you've got time to let that sink, it'll change the whole presentation of your lure. So if it is a TN, if you give it long enough, it'll be doing that rather than trying to pop up real high like it will with a floating braid. So it really depends on what you want to do with it. And again, with jigs, I suppose when you're letting something eat it for that long, they've usually got their head turned and they're starting to bury back into timber. And to me, I just think of it like a snatch strap. You need to wind down on them and just jerk on it that hard that it'll set the hook and it'll turn their head in one motion and get them facing towards you and then deal with them. If you do that with a braid where there's no stretch, you can snap it. You know, if it's a big enough fish and he's got in his gob and facing the opposite way, he'll probably snap it on you. Big enough, like I say, but get that fluoro where it's got a real lot of stretch and, like I say, a lot of sink. So depending on what you want to do with it, but because it has got that stretch, you may need to set the hooks a little bit harder, even on normal lures.
Yeah, that's right. And sorry, Corey, and adding to that, with fluoro, there's a lot of benefits and with in the fact of if you are using reaction baits, so treble baits, whether that be jerk baits, TNs like liplesses and stuff like that, trebles tend to come out, or they tend to pull a lot easier on braid and that. So if you do want to use fluoro, that's one of the major advantages with it because it does have so much stretch. It's got a lot of forgiveness. So you'll find you'll definitely keep a lot more hooks in trebled baits and whatnot. Like Mick said, with jigs and that, you do have to swing on them a bit harder. But it does have its advantages and disadvantages. So.
Yeah, no, excellent. And you've lit the screen up here. Everyone wants these rods, mate. There's questions coming in, and I'll tell you what, some of you guys out there, you're sucking to win this prize, I can tell you. Like, I want you know, a few of you, you know, we'll just pick on Tracy Brown because she's a close friend. She wants one for a 4-year-old, a 4-month-old. Sorry. So you know, it's you're not going to win the prize by sucking up. I can tell you that.
No, it's going to be hard, but let me tell you. But letting a lot of people down. That's for sure.
I can tell you what, when Chewin the Fat with the cat goes on the track, and I start cruising around, some of these venues that people are going to, I want to be going to. And we've got guys going cod fishing. There's a lot of people that want to go to Cope to the Mull Whale. There's heaps of people that are, you know, obviously going bass fishing. There's barra guys. There's people going everywhere. So it's good to see that when lockdown does finish, that we're going to be able to, you know, go to our favourite venues. Like I am just hoping ABT still holds the Kenya round in June, so we can all get up to Kenya and have that AB. I reckon that'll be off its jobs. So I'm just looking. Well, while you keep going through those questions there was one earlier on, Mick. What's the biggest bass you've got? I won't bring the question.
Biggest
up.
bass?
Yeah, I won't bring the question up because it's way back, but somebody did ask it earlier on.
Biggest bass is 3.2 kilos. The biggest fella I've caught out of Somerset.
3.2. Do you know what that went lengthwise?
No, I don't. You'll never guess what it was. When it was. It was when I was waiting for Braden. Actually, I was pre-fishing for him for the teams.
Oh, was that for the teams?
I caught. Yeah, I caught a 3 kilo one first cast when I pulled up to a spot on a John Deere slider grub, and cast it out there again. Caught a 3.2 kilo fella second cast.
Is that
on pre-fish?
Somerset.
And then I got on the boat and we didn't go real well. Oh, we went all right that weekend, but it was a struggle. I know that.
Yeah, we went all right.
What about you, Braden? What's the biggest bass you've caught?
Oh, I don't know weight-wise, but again, it's at Somerset because that's just how it is these days. I think it was 56, 57 tip. So not massive, but just, as Somerset bass go, they're just thick and just obs of fish. So, yeah.
Yeah, don't get caught up in all the hype because there are so many so many people out there put photo up on Facebook, and that's great. Everyone can share their thing over it. 50 centimetre bass in anyone's eyes is a big bass. We talk about it down here. That metre cod mark is the mark to reach. And you see, you know, your Facebook feed's just full of people catching metre cod. But when you put it to the whole population, there's not many people that have caught a metre cod. So that 50 centimetre, and you've got one over 55, which is absolute giant.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's with Barra. It used to be a metre, but now it's a metre 20. It seems to be for trophy fish, and yeah, that's the same with bass. Like 50 is a good bass, but it seems to be anything over 55 seems to be the real trophy. So
yeah, I'm just finding it hard to keep up because everyone's putting these comments in. There was a comment from Simon Jackson about trophy size bass. So yeah, yellows are classed at 60 centimetres, cod are at a metre, barra at a metre. So for me, a trophy size bass is really a 55.
Yep, I would agree.
You would agree?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yep, not very often you get them over that.
No, that's right.
And you know, you talk about Somerset. I mean, you can get, like, I'm talking over 3 kilo fish, between 3 and 4 kilo fish. They mightn't even crack 55. You know, it depends on the season, depends on how heavy they are. So, you know, it's hard to put a length on them. I suppose it's like any fish. They can weigh really good and be a cracking fish, but they don't have that length at that time. So
that's exactly
still a good fish.
When they get over that 50, like you could catch, if you're on a good bite and you catch a 50, you're cheering, and then you catch like a 52, and it's not just longer, it's just bigger in general, higher, wider, everything is just bigger, and it's only, you know, a couple of centimetres between the last one that you just caught. So yeah, I think any centimetre over 50, they just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, definitely. Cod are the same for the guys that are out there. Cod 75 to 100 is a massive difference, and you go up in those 5 centimetre marks, and the fish just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But yeah, they're trophy size fish. Here's one for you. What's your favourite beverage out on the water?
Ice water.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
It is on the water. Maybe not after. Yeah. Maybe not after you get off the water, but on the water.
There we go. We got another one there. I knew Tim would be on tonight, so he's asked the question to try and win that rod there.
Timmy. I can't just give it to you because of that.
Jackson North's going to Blue Rock. We've got where have we got? I've got to scroll back. Really, Brogo Dam. We've got a couple of Copetons. We've got Mowalas, Glenbournes.
We got a question there while you're looking at them. Peter Wright's asking, what's the record for bass? I'm pretty sure it's 4.2, 4.15, around that, between 4.1 and 4.2. I believe
because that was on Langer's boat, wasn't it?
It was on Langer's boat that Dan McCoy caught.
Dan.
Yeah.
So that's
they got it only last year, I think.
Yeah. So that's a registered world record for Australian bass, and that's over the 4 kilos. I have seen old time photos of bass caught that, you know, would blow your mind, but in the grand scheme of things, to answer the question is, yeah, definitely that if you want to go on and have a look at that fish, it's on Dan McCoy's Facebook page, and it's also on Matty Langford's Facebook page. It was an absolute giant of a fish, wasn't it?
Fish.
Yeah, that also, I'll get back to what you were talking about before too with Somerset. If they could keep water into Bjorky-Peterson Dam for any length of time, the fishing BP would grow just as big, if not bigger, than Somerset. They both have the same sort of layout with the long sloping banks where the bass can push the bait up into those shallows and gorge on them and grow really, really quickly. We took over BP at the start of the when the dam had filled up and they'd lost a lot of the fish, and then we stocked really heavily, and the stocking group stocked really heavily. And it only took 12 months and everyone, we had a tournament there and everyone was sort of catching 29 centimetre fish. And then within another 12 months, they were catching 40 centimetre fish regularly. And within 3 to 4 years, they were catching 50s again. So I think the exception to the growth rule are Somerset and Bioki Peterson for short-term fish growing really, really big quickly. All the other dams themselves, the deeper dams seem to be long time, 20 to 30 years to get to 50 centimetres.
Yeah, so I think the water temperature down there plays a big part in it, being close to the coast. Like both them dams, Somerset and Ivanhoe, seem to get them big bass in there. Whether that's got anything to do with it being such a warm climate all the time, I think in my mind with the gar and the bonies that are in there, some whatever reason must just keep them a little bit more active, I think, and it's. Yeah.
Because
I suppose with Barumba being the exception, I mean Barumba, but it's there's probably both come into play there, like you're saying with the shallow banks where they can get up and feed a lot easier on them because it's obviously keeping a lot warmer up there too, close to the coast. But I would say water temp's got to have a fair bit to do with it being so close down there.
Yeah. And we've got a great question here.
I saw this before.
Chicken crimpies, barbecues, or pizza steaks? What's your mate?
Definitely chicken crimpy.
100%.
Nah, see, I'm on the pizza shapes. Sorry, the original pizza shapes. Yeah, for me. So there you go, Lane. You've got that. That's two out of 3 people prefer chicken crimpies. All right, I'm still looking for questions. We've got people going cod fishing. We've got people going everywhere. We've got Blue Rocks. Thinking outside. A good one. Here's one from Calissa again. So, who inspired you to love fishing?
You go, Braden.
I've got to have a think here. I don't know. I've been fishing ever since I can remember. My parents, we used to go on holidays and that. And yeah, I've just been fishing ever since I can kind of remember. And then, so I'd probably say that'd have a big part in it because I wouldn't be doing it now if it wasn't for them, I guess. So, and other than that, I like just to keep on pushing everything and just trying new different things. So that's probably a big inspiration. If it's not somebody, it's just the challenge of probably getting the bass in particular to bite on different baits and getting the pleasure out of that and cracking different patterns and things like that would probably be my main inspiration. So
yeah, excellent. Mick, what about you?
Don't know really. I've started fishing pretty young too, I suppose, when we grew up around Proston there. And I'd have to say both my mum and dad, they did a great job when I was younger at getting me to the dam. And used to have a little tinny that they used to hire out at Boondooma. And I don't know, I must have only been 10, 12-year-old. And they used to drive me there most weekends, pick up the tinny, throw her on the back of the car, drive it down, launch me in the little bloody 5.5, whatever it would have been, and away I'd go for the day, and they'd go back home. We only lived probably 15, 20k away, and they'd come back at the end of the day and pick me up, and that was
a
my
long
weekend.
time ago when they had those hire baits at Boondooma though. Yeah, I can remember them.
Yeah, there was none of that canteen or any of the facilities were down the bottom there. Then it was all up the top. You had to go.
Yeah, you had to go at the top of the toilets and everything. Yeah. And there's a photo I found on your Facebook. I was there that day when your dad caught that cod.
Oh, yeah. There's our fellow loves his fishing for sure.
I did find that one on your Facebook page. We've got another question here from Mark. Most memorable moments in comps. We'll start with you, Braden. What's your most memorable top moment?
It's probably one of the most recent. It's probably been the recent Oz Open at Glenbourne, which was October last year, I think it was.
Yep.
That was good for me. I ended up getting a good result and whatnot there. Blowing its guts out on the first day, and I was just fishing the damn wall pretty much where all the wind, it was coming down the main stretch there, and it would have been probably 2 foot of chop on the wall there, and you couldn't stand up the front because it was just mayhem. There was water coming over the front of the boat and all that type of stuff, and I was just fishing the damn wall, and I would have got my fish. I was too worried to upgrade on the wall there because I was too worried about getting pushed into the rocks and all that. So I was just kind of just drifting down with the wind, and just had the electric on the around the neck, just kind of pushing forward every time I got close to the rocks. I was just throwing a little reaction on the rocks there, and that would probably be my most memorable because I would have had my fish in 6 casts. I think my 5 fish, and yeah, like I said, I didn't even get the whole way down the wall because I was too worried to sit back there and go off of the and start weighing fish and whatnot. So I just got my fish and got out of there. So that would probably be my most memorable.
Mick, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say it was a good memory, but probably my most memorable time was probably last year, an ABT tournament where we went down to St. Clair. Fished really well the first day, or fished really well for me. Had myself sitting in 3rd position down there, and sort of, it's not, I mean, it happens quite often where you bomb out, you don't get fish and whatnot. But for me, it was just a really good lesson in, especially fishing down there where I never get to fish too often and only fish down there a handful of times. But just a big eye-opener and a big learning curve for me that weekend, where went out the next day, like I say, sitting in 3rd position and could not catch a fish the next day, and just went from 3rd, I think, to about 43rd. And the kick in the guts that it leaves you, you still lay there at night thinking, what the bloody hell went wrong, and it's definitely them ones that you learn from the hard, or, you learn the best from them moments, because it plays over in your mind time and time again. Next time you go down there, you just make sure you don't make them same mistakes.
Oh, I look, agree with you totally. I mean, everyone, as I said, social media is great to get on there when you're having your morning coffee and have a look and you see fish after fish, or you see results and you see all these tournaments and you go, oh, well, this guy's doing really well. But you haven't seen the hard work or the times that they've missed out in that, and that's where you learn from when you make those mistakes and stuff like that. Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, be careful, boys. This is a great question from Mark. If you could fish with only one person, who would it be and why? Braden, go first.
Oh, my answer would be Braden Schuch.
Oh, come on, Nick.
Because he's just such a good bloke.
Oh, that's come on, mate. I'm not as much of a good bloke as you, Mick. What a good bloke. Bloody good bloke.
Oh, yeah.
Bloody good
bloke.
Bloody good bloke. Oh, God, I don't know.
Come on, stop avoiding the question. This should be an easy one.
It should be an easy one. I don't know if I could go anyone. Like, yeah, it'd have to be Corey. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Yeah, I don't know. If I could go anyone, it would probably be like, I don't even know. That's it. I'll have to come back. I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
You have to think about it and see if Mick can answer.
Oh, just pick one.
No, go on. It's got to be from the heart, Mick. Come on.
Pick your girlfriend.
Oh. yeah, right.
Yeah, you better.
I'll have a think.
What about you, Mick? If you could fish with one person, who would it be and why?
Be definitely my old man. Love going fishing with old fella. Yeah, just because love the company and the times we can have together. It's great. So have to be the old man for sure.
I would agree totally. I'd have to vote with Dad, because I've got 4 boys that love to fish, and I'm only allowed to pick one person. So the 4 of them will miss out, and I'll go with Dad. Braden, come on, you got an answer yet?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't think about that type of stuff. Bloody.
All right, we'll let
I
you.
don't know. I'll have to have a think, mate.
We'll let you think on that. Jessica's put a question in here. Of all the fish you've caught over the years, what has been your most memorable? So it doesn't have to be bass. She's asking for your most memorable fish out of everything.
I would have to say that one, Jessica. Fish day teams with Matt Langford. I think it was the middle of last year. I think it was in winter. And we were getting fish underneath shag trees there on surface and on jerk baits, and threw a surface out, and a bass ate it. And I jerked on it, or spent to set the hook on this thing, and my line must have been wrapped around the reel, and it cut the line off right at the reel. And so I'm chucking my normal little tantrum, stomping my feet, and Matt's like, "Oh, there's the line." So I'm laying down on the front deck. Matt's on the foot pedal, and he's trying to catch it. And every time we'd get close to it, this bass would take off again. So my hands here, and the line would go here, and we'd get there, and it'd just keep getting out of bloody reach. And we finally got it, and it was a bass that we weighed in. So that was definitely a memorable one for me.
What about you, Braden?
Yeah, mine would have to be. This was when I was young. When we used to go on holidays up at Walker's Point, which is just around Woodgate there. I remember we were sitting off. Dad and I had a spot off the Burham Heads boat ramp, so we'd put in at the Walker's Point boat ramp. We'd drive over, we'd get the yabbies, and then we'd go and sit off the boat ramp at at Burham Heads. There used to be a little gravel patch there.
Yes.
And I remember Dad catching this massive blubber lip. Like, it was just, back when I was young, it was just the biggest thing in the world, on his little whiting gear and that. And I still remember there was a crowd, because we weren't far off the beach. There was a crowd kind of on the beach that had formed watching us, and then this big thing just popped up next to the boat there, and then that'd probably be my most memorable, I would say. So
yeah. Excellent. Listen, I think we're going to have to give away another prize. What do you reckon, Braden? Let's give away one of the fishing rods. Have you got a question in mind there?
Yeah, so I've been having a look through. I've made my mind up for the spin. I'm still not sure about the cod one. I'm trying to go back up in the comments, but it only gets me so far. So I'm just having a look on the page at the minute, trying to go back a bit further. But for the spin, I've got, is it Cherie Robinson? She said, I think it's too far up at the minute as well. But she wants to catch her first bass pretty much. So, and she's been saying to her sister, I noticed down further, Calissa.
That's Calissa's sister, yes.
Yeah.
Calissa's a big fan of the show, yeah.
Yeah, saying give it to Cherie, because she's been saying she's going to go fishing for, 17 years, I think I read. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. So so she's run the little spin rod. So
yeah, awesome. So that spin rod. So Cherie, can you get onto us through my Facebook page? Send me your details, and I'll get it on to Braden for you. There you go. All right, going back. Yeah, I've lost a few of the questions there. It's still there. What I'll do is, Simon Jackson's put a question in here. Do you boys get down to New South Wales? Big freshwater fishing, cod, yellows. Example, Windermere, Murray River. Well, Simon, I can tell you that the boys will get down as far as sort of Glenbourne, St Clair for the bass, but I've been trying to talk Mick into a few years to come down and chase those big goldens at Windermere.
Yeah, probably the further south I've got to chase cod would be about the only thing I chase down there. Simon's down to Copeton, so I don't get too far down chasing cod or yellows down that way. Sorry, mate, but yeah, if you got a spot, you need someone to carry a tackle bag, hit us up.
Always in for a good road trip, aren't you, Mick?
Hey, my word.
What about you, Braden? We've talked ever since I got down here to get you down to chasing cod at my whaler, but we sort of haven't got around to that yet. Where's your to answer Simon's question? Where would you get to?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely closer now. So surprisingly, I've never targeted cod. I've never caught one. So being down here, that's definitely something that's going to happen. In the way of bass, I'm going to be fishing a lot of Glenbourne, St Clair, Lostock, and places like that. Same with Yellows at Windermere and whatnot. So I plan to try and get out and do some trips there. And yeah, definitely some cod trips out to some closer dams and whatnot, which will be really, really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So.
But you got river bass too. There's half a dozen good river bass spots there that you can kayak and fish in, don't you?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of river stuff around. I think is it the Hunter? The Hunter is the closest, I think, which is like boatable. So I'm in the Hawkesbury also. So I'm probably going to hit them up a bit with the boat. And whatnot. Then we go further north. There's a few other ones and whatnot. But there's a fair few little sneaky creeks around that we can walk or whatever.
Yeah. All right, cool. Mrs. Sump, look, we've got a great one here, Mrs. Sump. Now, before you two have a think about this one, I've actually got a story. I know a guy that it's his 50th birthday today. He's one of my mates from up in Mergen, Mr. Greg Mitchell, and I actually seen him kick a guy in the chest when he was trying to get onto his boat because he wouldn't watch the feet. That was pretty funny. So what about you, Mick? Have you ever lost it with your cowie other than me? I know you lost it with me a few times when we fished the teams comps.
No, I don't think I have, Liz. No, not that I can remember. No.
Braden, did you ever lose it with Mick in any of the teams times you were fishing with him?
Not to my knowledge, I don't think. Not even on ABTs or anything. When I've had cowies, I've never really had any problems or anything. It's all been pretty stable, which is good.
Yeah, look, we're freshwater guys. Apparently, all that sort of stuff happens in the brim sea. We'll call it that.
Yeah, it's on that salt water.
This is probably the best question that we've had in a long time. And Johnny's already won a prize tonight. But how's this for a hypothetical question? If you could take two species of fish and make them a hybrid, what would they be? Have a think about that one.
Yeah.
You got any straight off the bat? I would say my one would be cross a Murray cod and a barra, and then you get an almighty big fish that jumps out of the water. That would be cool. What about a GT and an Australian bass over
Yeah, there you go.
That'll do some damage.
and stick it in a dam.
Yeah, that's it. I know they tried mango jack in freshwater for a while, haven't
they? Yeah. I think they still do. They still got them up in the dams up north, I think.
Yeah, they do, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I would have to think.
You go, Mick. Yeah,
I'd have to go barra. I'd have to go barra and a bass, I suppose.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, I mean, if you had a barra that fought that hard and then you put a bass on top of it and had the size there, the bass might bring the size of the barra down a bit. But I think I think that'd be an interesting fish.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. A bass and a barra would probably be the
bass and a barra.
I reckon a jumping bass that grows to what, say 80, 90 centimetres would be pretty good, I reckon.
Imagine if a bass did grow.
That'd be deadly.
All right, I'm trying. I've lost my comments too. So let's Mick, how many prizes have you still got to give away?
Yeah, I've got two. I was just scrolling back through them because I've got some jigs here to give away, and I've got some fluorocarbon and a few plastics still. So
yeah.
If anyone's got any more questions on jigs or fluorocarbon, that kind of stuff, I've got some stuff there to give away.
Excellent. Get those questions still coming in, guys. I am trying to find a postcode one. I've lost all of my previous comments. I've got must cut out after I've got to a certain stage. So I want to sort of. Have you? John?
Sorry, I can see one there while you're having a look, mate. Kimmy has got Mick. What's the lifespan of a lithium battery, and do they need much maintenance? Good question, Kimmy. I suppose the short answer is depends on the quality of the battery of the lithium, and depends on the quality of the AGM also. But to give you a rough idea, they say that like a good quality lithium battery, you should be getting somewhere between 2,000 to 2,500 life cycles out of it, and that's at 100% depth of discharge. So you can charge that battery up, flatten it completely flat, 2,000 to 2,500 times. That's meant to be based on a minimum. And most AGM batteries, you're sort of getting anywhere from that. They say 400 to 500, but most of them, when you do the figures on them, people that use them, if you don't use lead acid very often, a good quality one will last a long time, but it's usually around that 300 to 350 cycles at 100% depth of discharge. So it gives you some idea. You're looking at, even if you say 400 compared to 2,000 to 2,500 cycles. So you can imagine they last a lot longer than what your lead acid does.
Yeah.
And do they need much maintenance? No, they don't. They don't store a memory like lead acid does. So if you get back from fishing or back from camping or whatever, and you don't get to charge it for a couple of months, or a couple of weeks or whatever, it won't store that memory and limit you to how high it can be charged. You just charge it whenever you need, without that worrying about that memory.
Awesome. And I'm going to give away the postcode prize for tonight. So because it's a Lee Martin thing tonight, we've got the $50 gift voucher from Lee Martin Marine. So you'll be able to ring them and buy something through Lee Martin Marine. So this prize was donated by Rick Doyle. So Rick is a big fan of the show, and he's donated a heap of prizes. He's made sure that all of our local shops here have been looked after and gone and bought little prizes from each one. So that's a Lee Martin Marine, and I will throw in a Bassman spinnerbait as well. So we've got a little shorty there, and the winner of the postcode is Jessica O'Neill. So Jessica, if you can send us a PM on Corey's Dam Fishing with your address, I will send that prize out to you. What about your prize? Have you found anyone for that bait caster there, Braden?
Yeah. I found I've had a look back through some comments and whatnot, and I've got Dave Hickoff, if I'm saying that right. He says he wants to go up to Mondi and catch some barra on swim baits, which I can definitely get around. I think that is a great idea. So he's the winner of the swim bait rod. So
excellent.
Details to Corey, and we'll go from there.
Listen, guys, I do have to say thank you very much for donating these prizes. That's awesome. So you'll get there. I'll get your details, Dave, and Cherie that won the rods. Make sure you give me your details. Johnny, give us your details. We've got Flynn, and who else did we give a prize to, Mick? It was earlier on. I'll look that up. I'll send me a message. So you've got one more prize to give away there, Mick?
Yep, two more. There was one there before. There's a question there about trimming weed guards. Nick Brown, do you trim your weed guards or leave them stand on your jig? Nick, with the Pros Factories jigs that are used, they come pretty much long enough, mate. I don't know if you can see these guys here. Don't really have to touch them too much. The biggest thing I've found with any of your weed guards is, as long as they're not too stiff, depending on what kind of jigs you use, as long as they're not too stiff and as long as they're not too long, but they need to be at least covering the tip of your hook, if that makes sense. So when you fold it down, it's got to be clear in that hook at least, and a little bit more even. So you don't want it falling short of the hook, because every time it rolls over a really small stick, and that jig falls over, it'll get caught on the hook. You don't want it really long either, because you'll find you can only imagine, I suppose, but when a fish goes to put that in his gob and it's got an inch of overhang sitting up too high, he might not get it down to where you want it to be,
so if it is
not get such.
So if it is too thick, you might just trim a couple of strands off to give it a little bit more movement. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, or some of these, I mean, like I say, these ones I don't really touch too much. They, after a bit of time, once you've caught a few fish on them, they do get a little bit wispy, and you've got to straighten them out. I just usually give them a twist and try and get them back straight again. But if anything, I don't know if you can see that weed guard there, but instead of cutting them off, I'll just spread them out and thin them out. And I think that also helps, like when that jig's going along the bottom, it stops him from rolling so much too. So if you've got these spread out a little bit more, and it wants to roll over, it can catch on them and sort of straightens itself back up a little bit quicker as well. So if anything, spread them out if you think it's. But they do a great job of these Pros factory ones. I mean, a lot of the jigs that you'll get these days are either, in my opinion, too stiff, and fish they've got to really crunch on them in the right spot to get them down, or they're not stiff enough. But most of them are just too stiff. So, and once you start getting a little bit heavier in the head, that's a 5/8 football jig, and I mean, you start getting into a little bit of weight like that, you tend to find that the weed guard will push down a little bit easier, or a lot easier than what a 3/8 jig will, because it's got that more weight pushing down on it. So you don't really want to fan the bigger ones out too much, I've found. Otherwise, you tend to catch more sticks and get snagged up a bit easier.
Yeah.
So for that, I suppose, if that answers your question there, who was it, Nick? I got a couple of 3-packs there. There's 2 3-packs, a couple of motion jigs, a couple of hybrid jigs, just in a few different colours for you. So
he'll love them, because Nick has just recently become a co-boater, so he'll really be able to use them if he gets to the Queensland dams. That'll be, even at Glenbourne and that, the right time of year. So that's awesome.
And Braden might be able to extend a bit on that. He's used jigs a lot too. So.
Yeah, I think it's a frame of mind personally with jigs, as a lot of fishing is. As the same as Mick, I use Pros Factory jigs in the 3/8 motion, the 1/2 ounce football, the 5/8 football, the 1/2 ounce equips, stuff like that. They're generally out of the packet. They're the ones, in my eyes, you don't have to do anything with. They come with a good length weed guard. The hook's really good and strong. The skirt's really nice. You don't have to do anything with other ones. You might have to do a bit of tweaking and whatnot with. But yeah, I think it's a lot of frame of mind. If a bass wants it, generally with jigs, they'll eat it. Like they're gonna get it in their mouth. They're gonna eat it. A lot of the time, if you get a bite, you'll find like scuff marks up your leader and whatnot, because they just inhale it. So
you have it so far in,
yeah, exactly. So like sometimes you can hook them right in the back of the mouth, and that's just on like a tiny little bite or something like that. So they just eat them. And to me, it's a lot of just frame of mind. Like if they eat them, just strike them, and you'll pretty much get them, in my eyes. Like Mick said, you can fray it out if it is a bit thick. But yeah, just generally don't think about it too much, because I know guys think about weed guards and they affect hookups and all this type of stuff. But to me, it's a no-brainer for the reward you get for being able to bring through some of the thickest cover, compared to maybe missing 1 or 2 fish. It's not even a comparison to me. So just don't think about the weed guard, and you'll end up getting confidence in them and getting fish on them. So.
Yeah, which leads into a great question here. I've got another one from Shane that I brought up, but I'll bring this one up because we're talking about jigs. Rebecca O'Connor has asked, what's your favourite trailer for your jigs?
Yep. For myself, I pretty much just use the Z-Man TRD Craws or the TRD Bugs. For me, for jigs, especially ones you're dragging on the bottom, which is 90% of the work I do with them, I'm also look for something that's going to bulk the skirt out. I never run a jig without a trailer on it. So I normally just look for something that's going to bulk the skirt out that isn't oversized for the bait. And in particular with the pros, that's where I find the TRD craws or the bugs seem to be a good size. You don't have to chop anything off. They just kind of thread right on. And because they're the Z-Man, they just last forever. So you don't have to go through, packets of baits just for, a bait of fish or whatever. So that's my general rule on them. I'm not looking for action or motion or anything. Just something that bulks it out. Yeah, just pretty much bulks it out and maybe like a couple of appendages just to kind of show that there's there out past the skirt. But other than that, I'm not looking for any type of swimming motion or flapping or anything like that. So that's
just for the beginners out there too, you just make sure that when you're using different plastics, how you store them. We talked about it last week. So you don't put a slider in with a Z-Man, otherwise they'll just turn into goo.
Yeah,
so
they'll just merge into one blob of plastic.
Yeah. So Mick, what about you? What trailer do you use?
When I start fishing, I usually just start fishing with a Molex SV craw, they call them. That's just looks like a little crawfish. I think that's the one that I've got on that 5'8". So he's just good little length. He's not too long, not sticking out the back. Got his claws hanging out the back of the skirt itself. Not too big and bulky. Some plastics you get, some trailers you get, especially the guys in the States that are running really big hooks, the plastics seem to be really thick and heavy. And I think if you don't put them on, well, even if you put them on like down the middle of the plastic, they start to get too rocky rolly in the middle of the of the jig. And they seem to, they pivot on that rather than sitting there, pivot on the head, and it tends to cause them to roll over. I've found just, using them in shallow water where I can see what they're doing. And they'll also sit up too high on the small hooks, and rather than having a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch gap, it's now filled all that in. You've only got a 1/4 of an inch to get a hook in the fish because your plastic's filled it all up. Either that or just to the gulp, just a standard gulp curl tail plastic. I like using the gulp. They seem to, if you're having trouble with fish, they short strike it or they have a bite at it and don't come back. Definitely the gulp products seem to get fish coming back. They have a bit of a taste of it, and they'll usually come back and have a go at it again. Usually.
Yeah. So I've got a really good question I want to go back to, but because there's jig questions, we're talking about jigs. Dave has put up here. Do you use assist hooks on your jigs or crankbaits?
No, not at all. No. In my eyes, the jigs are designed to be able to pull through pretty much anything you throw them in. So I wouldn't use an assist hook or anything like that. Potentially in open water, if you're looking at doing something like that, if you're fishing flats or riverbed drop-offs or something like that with a bigger jig and they're a bit more finicky, potentially you could hang some assists off the back of it. But, yeah, I probably wouldn't do it, no.
Mick, you're the same with that one?
Yeah, for sure. And that, you're sort of defeating the purpose of making it snagless, and I think a lot of guys, if you start out using them, and I sort of get caught up in it a bit myself, and I've got to check myself, but you'll start fishing jigs, and sometimes even though they say you can't fish a jig slow enough, I think you can waste a lot of time fishing jigs where you should be able to cover quite a bit of water with them. And like Braden was saying before, when they eat it, they'll just eat it. So you'll sit there and work an edge, and it might take you half an hour to work 100 meters of edge, and then you'll just come across that one fish that just, there's no tapping, there's no tipping. He's got it in his mouth and he wants it. And I think if you sit there in one spot for too long, you'll waste your time and waste a lot of time, and you should be covering more water with them. So get out there and just try. You'll come across that one. When he eats it, he's just going to eat it.
We've got Angus on asking another jig question here. What's your favourite colour or style jig? People mightn't realise they're different styles of jigs.
Yeah. So there's, I guess, generally, if you want to break it into the easiest, there's the swim jig, which is quite a narrow head, which is pretty much designed to be wound and brought through cover, being weed and whatnot like that. So they've got the same style. So they've got the weed guard coming up, but just the head's really narrow, so they just come through weed a lot easier and they don't get hooked up and whatnot. The second one would be like a hybrid jig. It's kind of a cross between a swim jig and a football jig. Where which is one Mick's got there. It's a little bit more of a wider head. They're probably the better all round if you were to buy a jig, because they can be used as a swim jig. They can be used on the bottom and slow, and thirdly, probably the football would be the other main one. As the name suggests, as Mick's shown there, they've got a football head on them, so they actually sit on the bottom and they sit upright. So the hook is always poking up, and you can pretty much drag those through any cover you want on the bottom, because they just always stay upright. And then that's what the head's designed to do. So it's always up and not turning over or anything like that. So they're probably the three main styles of jig you can buy.
Excellent. Listen, I've got to bring this question up because it is a great question. Shane's written here: have you ever tried a drop shot on bass like they do in the States?
Yeah. Boom Boom is a good place. Usually end of winter, around that. What do we got? October, August, September time. When you start getting fish on coming up off the bottom, like you're starting to get them on tail spinners, hopping blades, stuff like that. I've found that drop shotting, even in open water like that, wherever you get them, sort of just shaking it up off the bottom when they've lifted off the bottom, and it works quite well. I'm not game enough to throw it in a tournament, but it definitely does work.
Yeah, I know you experiment a lot because you do a lot of social fishing on those closer impoundments to you, Mick. But drop shotting, I never got around to doing it up there before I left. But I always thought to myself, when that sort of, as you said, in between that, when it's full jigging blades or ice jigs are the only way to catch fish, to coming into that spring bite, that period in the middle should be a dynamite time to use drop shots, and you've just nailed that on the head and told me that, yeah, my thinking was right. What about you, Braden? You use drop shots?
I've delved here and there. I've caught a couple of fish. I haven't really cracked anything yet. I've always thought it is more of a southern dam in my eyes, because the bass down here are a lot different to the bass up at home in Queensland. So where they sit on structure a lot more, and they're very kind of orientated to that. So I've always wanted to try it more down here. I haven't really given it too much of a go back up at home. I've caught fish at Barumba on them and whatnot, but not a real lot. So I've delved into more so the like the Nico rigging and all that type of stuff of craws and with nail weights and all that type of stuff, which is essentially just another offshoot of a jig if you were to put it into like a bundle, if you know what I mean. So and just trying more things like that. So
yeah. Hey Mick, have you got one more?
I do. Yeah. So I've been trying to look through them to.
No, you look through that, because I'm going to have to let you guys go. We've sort of, it's nearly 10 o'clock now. We've nearly hit the 2-hour mark, and people are, once the prizes sort of go, people start to drop off. But I'm going to bring this question up from good mate John O'Austin, and it's written about, with the general tournament fishing costs a lot. What's the best ways to gain sponsorship? I'll start off while you're looking for that. I think the best way, John, is to be, brutally honest. Is you've got to actually use that product before you go and start approaching people. You've got to not lie and not put things up, and be honest about what you're doing, and be in good standing with your fellow fishermen and everything else. You can't be that wanker out there and just win every tournament, because it's not what it's about. It's not about putting posts up on Facebook, oh, I caught it in this, and you can see legitimately in their video that they post up 2 weeks later that they were using a totally different lure. Don't lie, but actually you know, the products you're in love with and have been in love with for 10 years, they're the ones I'd be hitting up. I wouldn't be hitting up, you know, somebody that you've just, you know, started using this year. What are your thoughts, Braden?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Honesty is the main thing. I'm not really one to ask for things, so I like to show it more so, because I think that goes a lot further than just asking for things. So show that, you know, you're an upfront person, and it's not going to happen overnight. And you just got to, like, the way I used to go about it was I'd use the product and I'd catch fish on it, and then I'd just send pictures in and just try and get the best quality pictures you can do, and something a little bit different and whatnot, and send them and show them what you can give them, because at the end of the day, it's a two-way street. So you need to give them promotion or marketing in a way, and then they're going to give you product or something else in return as such. So that's probably the best way I'd go about it, is to be honest up front, and more so show what you can give them, and then reap the rewards after that. So
yeah, definitely, it is definitely a two-way street, and more led to their end. I mean, they're the one, you know, putting their efforts into getting all this product to you. You need to show them. Mick, have you got a view on sponsorship?
Got a what? Sorry,
a view on
it? Yeah, for sure. I think you know, a lot of guys I talk to, like Braden said, they don't really like asking for sponsorship. But coming from having a small business, I suppose I can sort of get where they're coming from if guys come to me for sponsorship, you know, and vice versa. Like I can quite comfortable to go to guys, but I make sure that I go to them telling them what I can offer, and not just say, look, I caught one fish on this, you know, give me, you know, free lures for the rest of that a year or whatever. You've got to go to them and just tell them what you can offer. And probably the best way of doing it is probably just by starting with one, and just so them guys have got something to go off, and you can say, well, look, this is what I've done for them, and you can give them some examples of what you can do for them. They usually, you know, they can see if they're in a position to. Quite often they're not in a position to help you out at that time, but you've just got to go about it the right way, be nice about it, and just
and give them something first. Like spend 3 months of sending them photos or sending them stuff, and really showing them that you're keen to do it. Don't just write an email and expect an answer. I mean, you know, Daiwa would get 10,000 people wanting to, you know, get stuff out of them. I mean, that's just how it is. And I know even for smaller businesses like yourself, Mick, you're in Chinchilla, so you'd have the soccer club, the basketball club, the netball club, the horse riding club, the jockey club, everyone hitting you up for raffle prizes, and that, you know, you get 5 or 6 a week.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, like I say, if you can get something back out of it, and that's all they need to see. They don't need to see you spruiking or how good you are or how good you think you are. They just need to see what they are going to get back out of it. And if you're a decent bloke that they can deal with and not be a cock about it, then, yeah, they'll deal with you.
No, definitely. All right, did you find a winner, Mick?
I did. Rebecca O'Connor asked that last question. So she asked, now I've got to find it again. She asked something about, the best trailer. What's the best jig trailer? So, Rebecca, we have got some 12-pound FC Sniper, some Sunline, and we got some Berkeley Gulps I was talking about earlier.
Excellent.
As a trailer.
And guys, I really cannot thank you guys enough for donating prizes tonight. So it is just fishing bits, fishing bits, fishing bits. If you don't know about fishing bits, they've got the auctions on. Get on there and watch their auctions. They're great. So, but no, I can't thank you guys enough for giving up your time tonight. I know we've spent lots of time in the past doing bits and pieces. We haven't been able to do it over the sort of the last 12 months. We catch up with each other every now and again, but you know, there's always comps that sort of keep us in contact. So you know, I can't thank you enough for your prizes. I can't thank Lee Martin Marine again jumped out, and of course Ricky Doyle is the major show sponsor. So thanks to Ricky Doyle. But don't forget, next week we are back talking Mulwala. So we're going to be with Vanessa and Tony Bennett. We're going to talk all things cod, all things Mulwala. We're going to talk about nationals. We're going to talk about cod classics. We're going to talk about everything Mulwala. We're going to be giving away prizes next week again. So tune in next Monday night at 8 p.m. for Chewin the Fat. But you guys, thank you very much. The comments are coming in. Best show ever. You know, having fun, loving it. They love the input. We'll get you on again. Hopefully, you guys will be up for the challenge when Chewin the Fat goes on the track. You'll be up for the challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, because I know Glenn Casey and Rod McKenzie have definitely agreed. I've got you two on board. So as soon as lockdown's over, I will get on the road and start doing some challenges or doing some of this fun stuff. It's not about how big a fish we catch, it's about how much we have, how much fun we have. So thanks, guys. We'll cut it off there. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You know, see you next week.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.